Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Screen Overload Movie Talk, the show where we talk about all things coming out of Hollywood. Today's episode we're going to talk about the Batman standalone and what's actually happening with that. Is it still part of the DCEU? We're also going to talk about the Joker standalone that's going to be produced by Martin Scorsese. We're going to talk about another Joker film, also with Harley Quinn in there, which seems to be part of the DCEU. Bad Boys, Mission Impossible, Knight Rider reboot, and also we're going to talk about a couple of other things on the show. In today's show, what we're going to talk about is the Batman standalone. Is it going to be part of the DCEU? So the reports that were coming out, Matt Reeves saying that the film wasn't going to be part of the DCEU. This is questionable. We have to just think about what exactly is going on with the DCEU as it is. We've already got all of these reports coming out saying that Ben Affleck, we're unsure about whether he's going to be Batman, not going to be Batman. His brother said something last week, as we touched on in the previous episode. There's all of this stuff coming out and we're not sure what's actually going on. Now for the director, who's meant to be working with Ben Affleck, coming out and saying, well, I don't know, I don't think this is going to actually be something that will be part of the DCU. That obviously makes us have to start asking questions like, well, what exactly is going on? So since then, obviously at the time of us recording this, he came out and said it's not going to be part of the DCEU, which he said in an article. So somebody would have known that him saying that would obviously stir up the fans to think that this was obviously not going to be part of the DCEU that they're establishing, and that Ben Affleck in turn wouldn't be playing Batman because he'd be looking at a younger version of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and that's where his story would be going. So since then, at the point of when we're recording this, he's now came out and said it's not like that, and what's actually happening, of course it's going to be part of the DCEU, but I just think that's part of some publicity machine myself, where they're like, all right, we need to calm this down because people are getting a bit crazy now. They're worried about where this franchise is going, what's happening with the studio. We need to kind of have the director come out and clarify his statement. He's come out and he said it will be part of the DCEU. What's everyone worried about? I reserve judgment. I've seen these kind of things happen before, and then obviously to calm everything down for now, and then at some point we'll get the report, because remember, they still haven't released the Justice League, so it's not good timing for them to start saying Ben Affleck's not going to be in the film, because it doesn't help with their promotion for the film. The lead actor in the film suddenly not going to be part of the next Batman franchise. It's not a good look. So what they're going to obviously do is they're going to obviously try and calm everything down, at least for now. We'll see, guys, but again, like I said last week, I still think Ben Affleck's a good Batman, and I hope him and Matt Reeves obviously are working on something really cool, a standalone film. I don't mind them saying, okay, it's not connected to the wider DCEU and you won't see any cameos from any other one else. That's fine, but I still reserve judgment on the fact that I think that they are trying to do a complete retcon and reboot, well, I probably should call it a soft reboot, and who knows what will happen with this, but I'm reserving judgment. That's kind of how I'm going to stick with this for now. Hopefully I'm wrong about some of the things that we're seeing, but who knows, guys. Give me your thoughts, let me know what you're thinking on that. While we're still talking about DC news, we've also had news come out that the Joker will also have a standalone movie also coming out, which will be produced by Martin Scorsese, no less. I know, Martin Scorsese, and will be directed by Todd Phillips, the guy who came up with the Hangover trilogy. So that will be quite an interesting mix. I'm not sure I trust Todd Phillips with something like the Joker, but who knows what his take may be. But with Scorsese also being the producer, that does mean that we might get a darker, more crime elements and things like that. In terms of the writer's room, that might actually help that way. I'm interested in it, but I'm not overly fussed on a Joker origin story. I mean, we already know where the Joker goes, we know what his motivation is. He doesn't really need an origin tale. The Joker works best when he's very ambiguous and you're not sure about all of those things. I think you'll take away from the character if you start delving into the backstory of him. So I'm not sure on what they could do with him, but I'm still interested. You know, I would watch the film as a comic book lover. I would watch the film, and especially the idea that Scorsese's on it. Not really Todd Phillips, that hasn't gripped me, but the Scorsese side of that does obviously make me think, because he's quite a credible film director, so maybe there'll be something to obviously grab onto within the film. But we'll see what happens with that. While we're still staying on that film won't be part of the DCEU. That will be a standalone story by a new part of Warner Brothers DC, a new division, a new studio, a new label, from what I'm being made aware. It's not actually going to be the DCEU, so maybe that does allow for some other standalone tales, like maybe, I don't know, Red Sun, for example, the Superman tale where Superman was... It's a what if tale, Elseworlds if you will, for those people out there who don't know what that is. It's a tale where Superman falls into Russia, and obviously the story plays out as if a what if Superman fell into Russia. That would be pretty cool to see play out in the new studio that they're creating. But the story I want to talk about is Harley and Joker is going to be a standalone film as well, but this is part of the DCEU, this one. So from what I'm led to believe is that this will actually be replacing Gotham City Sirens. Now, I was all for Gotham City Sirens. I wasn't at first, because I didn't really like the take of, not saying I didn't like Harley Quinn, but I just didn't think there was enough there to kind of grab onto as a film and kind of work with. But when I heard it would be Gotham City Sirens and not just a Harley Quinn film, that kind of gripped my attention a bit more. The idea of you could put Catwoman in there, Poison Ivy, you could even have part of the Bat family, like maybe Barbara Gordon playing Batgirl. All of these sort of things kind of lent themselves quite cool and could have been a really interesting take and a better alternative to Suicide Squad. But the idea of a Joker and Harley film, based on this Joker and Harley, I mean, Jared Leto and Margot Robbie, they were largely okay. I mean, she was, but I didn't really like the way that he portrayed his Joker, and I didn't really buy their relationship of Joker and Harley in that. So it will be interesting to see a film. I mean, from what I saw with the Suicide Squad, within the 15-20 minutes of backstory that we got with that, I don't think there's a 90-minute film in there where we explore those characters together, whether that's their backstory or whether that's a story that's set apart going forward. I just didn't really like the take on it. That's my personal opinion. Maybe you guys think different to myself, but I'm not one of those people clamoring for a Harley Quinn and Joker film. I'd rather they just did the Gotham City Sirens and obviously, play out some of those elements there. I'd love to see Harley Quinn interact with characters like Poison Ivy and some of the Batman villains and things like that. The Joker is interesting, but Jared Leto's version of the Joker just wasn't received very well. Not particularly by myself, and I don't think favoured very well with critics. Who knows, guys? DC's doing interesting things. I'm not sure what they're doing with the universe overall. I mean, we've covered Batman standalone with a new label. We've covered a Joker standalone that will be produced by the label, and potentially, and we're covering a Harley Quinn that's going to be part of the DCEU. So we have to ask the question, what exactly is going on with the DCEU, guys? Give me your thoughts, because I'm confused as anything. But I'm going to watch it play out just like the rest of you. The next story we're going to have a look at is Bad Boys 3. I was one of those people who was interested in the idea of seeing these guys come back. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith reprise their roles for another film. I think it's been a fair few years since we saw the last Bad Boys, since Bad Boys 2. And a lot of us thought it would be interesting to see a Bad Boys 3, but apparently the rumour is that it's been shelved now, so we won't be seeing that film anytime soon, which is kind of sad. I didn't hate the last film. The first film was really good. Maybe it's Michael Bay's Transformers that haven't actually helped him going forward with this property. So I think the studio may have lost some confidence in him in being able to even direct something like this. I mean, look at Pain and Gain, for example. Would you want to see more of that, but with Bad Boys? Or would you let him just leave his franchise or bring somebody else in maybe to direct it? I don't know, just produce it, but let somebody else direct it? Who knows, maybe. But I'm pretty sad to hear that Bad Boys been shelved. I didn't mind the idea of seeing those guys at least do one more film. It might have been better. Moving on from there, Mission Impossible 6 has been shelved following Tom Cruise having an injury to his leg. So they've had to stop production for now, and it just means that we're going to have to wait that little bit longer for a new Mission Impossible film. So hopefully it gets better soon and they can proceed with the production on the film. But when it comes out, it'll be good, and I'm sure Tom Cruise is itching to get back in and do the stunts. That's the problem when the action star wants to do all the stunts himself. So, you know, sometimes these things happen, but hopefully he gets it back together and then we can see what happens with the rest of that. But I'm interested. Next story is one that made me scratch my head. Where do we even go with this, guys? Knight Rider reboot. Now, I'm all for a Knight Rider reboot, but depends on how they do it. So we had the A-Team a few years ago, which wasn't very received, but it was done more in a serious tone. I figured they would probably want to do that with this, but no, they've completely gone the other way. Much in the vein of how everything seems to be that was made in the 80s. They want to reboot it in a comedic way. And now, even if you're going to do that, the cast, or the rumoured cast, makes me scratch my head. Now, in the role of Michael Knight, just bear with me here, guys, because this is the drum roll moment. The role of Michael Knight in this film will be portrayed by John Cena. Yep, I did say that. John Cena, the wrestler. He will be portraying Michael Knight, rumoured, and the voice of Kit will be none other than Kevin Hart. Now, like you out there, I'm scratching my head and I'm going, well, okay. I didn't see this coming. Who knows? Maybe. But just judging by, I'm not convinced, guys. Maybe it might work, but I'm a purist. I'm a fan of the original stuff. I grew up with it, you know, in the 90s, and I loved the Knight Rider. I thought it was really cool, but this time I think Hollywood's gone too far. So I want to see what happens with it. I will still watch it so I can judge it, and obviously I have to, because that's what we're going to do. If you're going to talk about films, you have to watch them all, no matter how good or bad it is. But the idea of John Cena as Michael Knight, I'd rather take Kevin Hart as Michael Knight, to be honest. Now that's probably something I could probably get behind, but just because of John Cena's acting chops, I'm not convinced he would even know what to do with the role. Give me your thoughts on that one, guys. That one caught me off guard, I'm not gonna lie. Moving on from there, Riz Ahmed is in talks to be in the Venom movie. Now this is probably something I should have covered on the previous episode, but I didn't get around to it, so sorry about that. But Riz Ahmed's going to be in it, the Venom movie, which is the Spider-Man standalone film that Sony's producing as part of their extended Spider-Man universe. Who will he play in the film? I do have to question that. Who on earth will he play? Cletus Cassidy? That's everyone's bet. Could he do Cletus Cassidy justice? Would he be interesting? For one, he hasn't got the red hair. They could dye it, but I don't think that's something they'll do, and I don't think it would look right. He was really good in that Nightcrawler film back in the day with Jake Gyllenhaal, so he has that kind of creepy thing about him if you give him the right roles. And he was also good in the Star Wars movie, but I'm not sure Cletus Cassidy, it might be that stretch too far. It's a very dark role, and particularly with how they want to take this an R-rated film, you know, 15 certificate for us in the UK. But I'm interested to see what they do with it. Maybe, who knows? Again, that's something we'll keep you guys informed of. More information we get about it, the more information I'll let you know. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about on today's episode is the son of Shaft. So a few years ago, well, I say a few years ago, almost over a decade ago now, we had a Shaft film starring Samuel Jackson, who played the title role in that film, and it was almost a sequel to the early Shaft films, which Richard Roundtree was part of in the 70s. So what we've got in this version is it will be called The Son of Shaft, and it will be played by everybody's favourite knockoff Will Smith in the latest Independence Day, Jesse T. Usher. Now, his acting chops weren't that great in that film, but maybe he can redeem himself with The Son of Shaft. So the report is that he's signed on to play this film, and the film will go into production later this year. And Samuel Jackson will also be in it, reprising his role as John Shaft. And Richard Roundtree will also be in it, reprising his role of John Shaft. So will Jesse T. Usher also be called John Shaft as well? So it'll be John Shaft meets John Shaft meets John Shaft. So the idea is that he's meant to be estranged from Samuel Jackson's character Shaft, and they're father and son, and they can't get on, but they have to, because the young Jesse T. Usher version is a homicide detective, and he needs the help of his father and his great uncle to kind of solve a crime. And there's all of this stuff that's coming out. Quote me wrong, I don't know, but this is the early stuff that I'm hearing about the film. I'm interested because I like Shaft. I liked the older films, and I also really liked Samuel Jackson's take on the character, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. But again, more information I know, I'll let you guys know. But that's all for this episode, guys. Stay tuned. If you enjoy what you're hearing, just leave me a little like, subscribe, tell me what you're watching. I'm interested. If there's anything that you think I should cover in terms of film news, just let me know, guys.